Hello world, this is Zan. I just got finished watching Lucid's newest video on Late Age Abysia, and he provides a pretty damn good guide on them. I agree with almost everything he says, and I don't want this video to compete with it. I actually just want to expand on it with a few of my opinions. Originally, I was writing a comment on his video, and the comment was starting to get really long, so I figured, how about I just do a smaller video of my own just to show the topics I wanted to expand on. So I have here a test game that I kind of tried to curate some of the things I wanted to talk about. So to start with, in his video, I think the unit analysis on the Late Age Abyssian roster is actually pretty spot on. All these little units here, especially the one with these little axe dudes versus the flail dudes. I think it's cool that the flail dudes get 2 attacks per swing, but in the late age, unlike the other ages, 16 damage on their swing, even if it is 2 swings, isn't really strong enough anymore. I know in the other ages they had purebred Abyssians versus now these are like human bred. They're a bit weaker. But I just don't know if 16 damage per swing cuts it against most of what you will be fighting in the late age. Things can change once you have some late game magic like Growing Fury so that they don't get repelled with their 6 defense and low morale, or Weapons of Sharpness so that each of these 16 attacks alongside Rush of Strength actually become a 20 attack or a 20 damage armor piercing that hits twice, and then with a bonus against shield. In those situations, they might be better, but for the most part, I actually do prefer these axe infantry as the generic recruit for the nation, alongside the warbred and the tower shield guys. It goes back to almost everything he said, that it really depends on who you're fighting. To add to the units, because I know he didn't talk about them too long, I do want to mention that these Abyssian light infantry are actually really good for their cost. They are more expensive than traditional human infantry, that's true, but you know, I always say this in most of my videos, I like it when I am paying 1 gold for 1 hit point or 1 gold for more than 1 hit point. So this is still fine for me. The important traits that they do have is that they have a little bit extra strength, so the spear does 14 instead of 13. It's tiny, it makes a difference, in my opinion. But most importantly, they do have 14 defense skill, of which most of it is this tower shield, I know. And this doesn't look like it would work in practice, or in theory, but in practice, I have found that, at least for early expansion, these do pretty darn good. And I actually ran a little practice battle against whatever random AIs respond. I know I have about 30 of them, of these little spear guys here. They heavily outnumber the enemy. I know this isn't the first expansion party or whatnot. But as you get going, oh, dang it, my test is ruined as they have an experience star. Whatever, I'm going with it. Take my word for it that just a big chunk of these guys on attack closest with Swarm Tactics will do pretty good against most AI. Or not most AI, but most indie camps. So they'll rush forward, you know, they'll take some hits. The javelins hurt, the heavy swordsmen hurt. It doesn't matter. They do hit pretty hard against. Are these? Yeah, these are the chainmail hauberk. So these are the heaviest heavy infantry you tend to find. They do damage well enough. So that's important. You know, these guys have 12 attack skill. Well, I guess they also have an experience star. So maybe the test can be salvaged because the indies also have an experience star. it kind of evens out, you know? But you see, most of them aren't actually landing any hits. They're taking damage in return. They can get repelled by the spears, which matters a lot against indies. So, fast forward, and the indies get cleared out. Ultimately, we took... oh, darn, what's the key to look at the battle log? I don't remember. This is Bandit Hills. So I lost 9 dudes, but I took the province. And it's giving me 109 gold because I have a great gold mine, but whatever, you know, they work. They're not beautiful, but they're low resource, low recruitment point, and an okay amount of gold. And in large numbers, which you should be able to get with production scales, which I tend to recommend on any Age of Abysia. You could get a lot of those compared to maybe not as much of these heavy infantry or warbred. So So I wanted to bring that up. Next on my list, I have to never recruit. I know that in Lucid's video, he talked about it a little bit on the various assassins. I do want to point out you never, ever, ever want to recruit this guy, the Slayer Newt, because although there is a 10 gold difference between him and the Slayer Worm, their stats are significantly different. The most important parts of their stats being the extra 5 hit points. So the Slayer Newt has 30% less hit points than the Slayer Worm, and that's a pretty significant percentage. And more importantly, the Slayer Worm has both Dark Vision and a Heat Aura. Now, most assassination battles in the later game end up not really being about the assassin itself. It's more about, what Pokemon he's going to bring, what spell he might cast. So maybe those won't matter as much later in the game, but at least early on, it matters that your assassin is going to be able to have Dark Vision and a Heat Aura to be able to beat up the independent commanders and whatever bodyguards they may have. So at least early on, make sure you always are recruiting Slayer Worms. Do not recruit Slayer Newts. Later on, with items, go for it. It doesn't matter. But yeah. Let's see. I also wanted to touch upon the Assassin expansion. And man, I wish I had taken more notes on how I did this. I did this in the 2021 tournament qualifiers. I had a pretty good success chance on how I did it, but I honestly can't remember all the little tricks that I did. I did not use the Slayer Sanguines, although I don't know if 2 of these would be better than 3 of these. That is interesting, but I guess 2 of these guys competes with 4 of the other guys, and they're a lot more expensive, so if you lose them, it really, really sucks. Whereas losing a wave of these guys, since they're using commander points, doesn't really matter. Now, the bless I did with it, I know for a fact this is the bless I took during that qualifier, and I expanded with it, and I did really damn good. But gosh darn, I really can't remember all the steps I did. I have a sample battle here talking about it. I know that the most important thing of that expansion, this I do remember, is the positioning and the script of your Slayer Worms. It was very, very important that you look at your enemy and you determine whether you need to forward deploy them or back deploy them. So if the enemy has a lot of these heavy infantry or has no cavalry at all, you actually want your Slayers to be far forward and then on a big hold script, because you don't want them to move. You want to make sure that all 3 of them are in the same square, because it makes it easier to dodge attacks and so on. So if this army had some form of cavalry, I would actually hold them far back. That way they can deal with the cavalry on their own, and then they can deal with the infantry and crossbows and whatever the heck. So this would be a pretty use case. I mean, this is a pretty easy independent province. You can take this with your army, but the whole point of this expansion is that you're expanding in one direction with your army and in the other direction with your command points. And you're doing this with not an assassin expansion. They could do an assassin expansion, obviously, but you're taking one province a turn now instead of one province every 2 turns. So it's just something more to balance out. Obviously, in assassination battles, this bless is very powerful because the fire shield aspect of it makes it hard, or makes it very effective against traditional early game bodyguards. This is interesting. You actually got this battle wounds. I was looking at this earlier, and I didn't know. You can apparently get damaged by repel and then get a reflection as a result of that damage, which is insane to me. He took 1 damage from that repel, and he got battle fright. This is dumb. Anyways, continuing this fight, I'll give you guys spoilers. It ended up not working. But it got pretty darn close. And although I would be kind of pissed, I guess, that I wasn't able to take the province, they got pretty close to it. And I'm sure there's some other spices I needed to add to this mix for it to work more consistently. Maybe I had something else in the bless. Maybe I don't know, just better luck. But I hope with this video at least you can see that it is possible. There is just a luck factor, and it was never ever guaranteed to work every time. Just keep that in mind. And then obviously, that's against independence. Against 6 province defense that most players are going to have, it 100% is going to win easily. Like, no challenge. All right, next topic is going to be actually the liquid flames. I think he said liquid flames of Rue. I'm horrible with pronunciations. He talked about it very little, and this won't really help Late Age Abysia much. It's very difficult to cast, but I did want to talk about it really quick, that what differentiates it from other spells is that this is essentially a very high damage fireball. It's 24 armor piercing versus 16. So even if you have 10 fire resistant, this is going to hit you as hard as a fireball would if you had no fire resistance, which is pretty good. But on top of that, now it has this splash of molten metal. Normal fireball just does this large area heat shock, but this liquid flames does actual damage. And if you're fire resistant, that's fine. This isn't going to bother you. But if for whatever reason that the units this is hitting are not fire resistant, then yeah, this is pretty significant. This 24 damage to 1 square hit, followed by this 10 armor piercing and a 6 area effect. Now that is pretty significant. So I do have one battle where I have a smallish force to fight this crappy throne defense that importantly has a lot of heavy cavalry and a lot of heavy infantry. So as my normal script for Anathemate Dragons, I tend to have them casting Phoenix Pyre and Iron Skin. I do this in my early or middle-aged Abyssian games because, having them die sucks. And now these knights are exactly where they want them, and they just get deleted. So you'll see, this guy never took a direct hit from the fire. He just got hit by those splashes of molten metal. His fatigue is insanely high already, so his stats are going to be garbage. And he took a lot of damage, just a lot of straight up damage, and he wasn't even directly hit. All the ones that directly got hit died. And it just deletes. These are the chainmail heavy infantry, which is a respectable amount of protection. And they just get deleted, lit on fire. They walk into combat with a lot of fatigue. Liquid Flames of Rue. Very good spell. I do recommend, if you're Abysia, cast it when you can. Obviously something like Flame Eruption is probably better, but it's worth noting again, and I can't even show you this because I have the debug mod. There are spells that are allowed to be good, despite other spells being better. It's okay. There are windows in the game, and I believe Flame Eruption is like Evocation 6, and Liquid Flames of Rue is Evocation 5. Competes with Falling Fires. There are different spells for different occasions. Anyways, I want to test now, or show now, there's a little trick with Life After Death and your own units. And it's now, I've done it on Late Age Abysia. I think I did it on screen to make my mages soulless or to get undead mages. As Late Age Abysia, I wanted to do it because I needed them to be undead. As Late Age Abysia, you're going to find yourself casting the spell Send Lesser Horror, and it's going to spawn some random assortment of horrors as a remote attack on an enemy province. So here's just a bunch of crappy Agarthan province defense. Just in case you've never seen the spell, it looks like the commanders got mind blasted and sniped. That's pretty funny. So you don't even get to see the real the situation where these horrors, these belly maul horrors with all these armor piercing attacks and this 2x versus smaller beings attacks just rip through this infantry. You get to miss that. But trust me when I say this is 40 PD and this would get wiped out by these handful of casts. How many casts was it? Okay, maybe it's more than a handful. This is 5 casts of Send Lesser Horror. It's probably overkill. But you're going to see, as any Age of Abysia, you're going to cast this spell a lot. And Illwinter in the latest patch just made it so that your mages will get horror marked by casting this often. And you generally don't want that because the mages you have that can cast it are these Warlocks. Although they are 2 recruitment points apiece, to cast the spell, they either need to get this Astral Random to be Astral 3, Blood 3, or wear a Starshine Skullcap. In both situations, you don't want them getting horror marked and then attacked by horrors. Per se. So one of the things you can do is find a way to get them killed. To an independent attack of your own, either something like Phantasmal Warriors or heck, your own Send Lesser Horrors, while you have cast Life After Death. So I have here just an example, and I'm going to warn you. Doing it with Send Lesser Horrors can be very dangerous because you don't know what horrors you're getting, and horrors are very powerful. Phantasmal Attack is better, but I think it's very more likely that you as Any Age Abysia will be able to cast Send Lesser Horror about this much easier than you're going to be able to cast Phantasmal Attack, which is an Air 5 spell. In both cases, you're going to get a bunch of independent enemies that are going to run into your province defense, which I have augmented with all these poisonous crap. It doesn't matter which one or what you do. Heck, you don't even need them technically. You can do something like Foul Vapors, which I think I'm casting. Yeah, there is Life After Death. Very important that goes off first. Cast wait a little bit longer. And don't worry about the fire elementals, or I just really don't want, and actually, maybe worry about the fire elementals. You really don't want these horrors to kill your province defense. So maybe worry about, make your own fire elementals. Like, take this very seriously if you're doing it with Send Lesser Horror. If you're doing it with Phantasmal Attack, it doesn't matter. Your province defense can win on its own. But be very careful against the Send Horrors. Regardless, I have here these Bog Beasts because they have Poison Clouds. I think I have the Bog Drake for the same thing. Oh no, they don't have Poison Clouds, they have Poison Barbs. So never mind, no Swamp Drakes. But the Bog Beast with the Poison Clouds is pretty concentrated. The bad thing is that they're undisciplined. You can alternatively use this guy, I'm not going to pronounce this. It's the Bull with the Gaze of Death, which is pretty cool. This has a Poison Cloud and is not undisciplined, so you can set this to bodyguard one of your commanders, and it's going to like walk in circles around your Warlocks now. And you see here already, these Warlocks have died to their poison, and they've turned into soulless. They're supposed to lose their fire resistance. Right now they have Army of Gold on, but they're supposed to lose all the traits that make them Abyssian. But more importantly, they become mindless. Because they're mindless, they can now function safely as an Astral Mage in combat. Obviously, they're going to run into issues where now they might be the only undead on the field, and that's dangerous. We're going to ignore that for a second. We're going to focus on them being mindless, which makes them immune to spells like Mind Burn, Magic Duel, Soul Slay, whatever, and they can be an efficient Astral Mage in combat. Wow, this guy got a double random. How cool. Yeah, that's more normal. So now they could be more of an efficient or a safer combat mage. Obviously, again, there's other things that might happen. Forget those. More importantly, because they're mindless, now it doesn't matter how astral horror marked that they get, the horrors won't come trying to kill them. So they can safely stay at home forever and just keep spamming Lesser Horror, and you'll never risk losing a dude. You can just give them the Starshine Skullcap. Where are they? Boom. And have this guy send Lesser Horror for all of eternity, and the horrors will not come kill him. I want to add to that a little bit of Zan sauce. If you don't see the game ending soon, and you have a pretty decent blood economy by this point, I would recommend actually make some soul contracts. They're expensive as all heck, but if I remember correctly, it takes about 13 turns for it to pay itself off, give or take. So you can actually add some soul contracts, and it's going to spawn one devil per turn, per contract, forever. Because the weakness of this is, one, it's expensive as all heck, and two, the mage you give it to might die within a year or two, because tainted means you're going to get horror marked, cursed means you can't get rid of it. Being cursed also increases your chance of being attacked while horror marked, so your units die pretty quickly while holding on to this. But if they're mindless, like these soulless that we just made, then horrors will never attack them, and you will just get one devil turn for the rest of the game. Again, this is definitely a judgment call by you, the player. Don't do this on turn 80. It's hard to, obviously you're not going to have the spells available to do this life after death trick until later on in the game. So it's definitely a judgment call. Do you see the game going more than, I would say, 15 turns than where you currently are? If you do see it going further than that, then yeah, go ahead, feel free, make these contracts. I know most people watching this are going to think, wow, Zan, that's a waste of blood slaves. You are Late Age Abysia. Your blood economy between this guy and this guy should be absolutely wild bonkers. The game I played them in, I think I was pulling 400 slaves a turn by turn 50. And I could probably do more. Probably. So, yeah, your Late Age Abysia, your blood economy should be completely wild. And yeah, so I wanted to put on that. And I think the last thing I just wanted to mention is I think Lucid had mentioned as well these Warlocks, how you can cast Teleport and kind of thug them out with gear. I've done that before, but not with thugged out gear. I've actually done it with, and I don't have one now. Oh, I did have something to talk about. I've actually done it with these lifelong protections, which again, you're Abysia, you should have plenty of these. If, once more, this item is cursed and tainted, so if you're mindless, it'll never penalize you. But essentially, this is just going to summon a lot of imps. And I think I've done this on my channel where I'll have just a teleporting warlock. Like, this guy would be perfect. Give him the lifelong protection, have him teleport somewhere. You know, he can now just do kind of like an Iron Skin, Body Ethereal, whatever the heck he needs to do, and go from there. And the imps will usually beat up whatever province defense they need to beat up. He can cast whatever spell he wants to cast. I've done that before. It's worked pretty damn well. So I wanted to add that. And then on the items, I did want to say, never forget, as Late Age Abysia, as any Age Abysia, until the game gets really, really late and people are starting to cast Army of Gold or have a lot of fire-resistant Sacreds, I do recommend making a Dragon Scepter and taking advantage of this Dragon Mastery, because Fire Drakes are really, really good. They're undisciplined, so they have to be behind your troops. But I do want to mention just that this 13 armor piercing attack, 15 if you give them a +4 strength magic spell, whatever. Standing behind your infantry line and shooting this hits a lot of enemies and could do potentially a lot of damage. So I think a decent expenditure of your fire gems early on in the game is to get these fire drakes. So 1 for 6 is kind of a fair price, but then once you get a dragon scepter, you're getting 2 for 6 or 1 for 3, you know. And I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty good. That's, again, it's a personal opinion. I've used them before and I thought they did pretty well, and I don't see them used very often. The other thing I want to mention, the Fountain of Youth, a cool interaction with this is it's going to slow down aging on your newly made Warlock recruits, so then they're all young. Where I haven't tested it, and I guess I can do it right now, is I haven't tested it with Infernal Breeding, because Infernal Breeding has an issue of a lot of the units that it makes tend to be old age, and that sucks. So let me try it real quick and see what happens. I'm curious in battle afflictions, but yeah, look at that. Aging 25 years a century. Oh, no, nope. There we go. It doesn't work on Infernal Breeding. That's unfortunate. Anyways, this video got super long, but I did want to add this because I'm really excited. I really love all the Age Abysias, and I thought Lucid's video was pretty darn good. And I just wanted to add to it. So, hope you guys liked it, and I will see you next time.